Watershed, it can be said, our home place. The clouds, the hills, our roof, our halls, and simple truth of watershed, here all our waterfalls.
Being outdoors in nature. Most people love and appreciate it. Our challenge is how we ensure that future generations can enjoy that same love of the outdoors that we foster today. One part of the answer is through monitoring the health of the environment. Doing so allows us to measure changes in the condition of local ecosystems, revealing whether current activities and management practices need to be altered. One local initiative that hopes to do just that is Riverwatch, a program of the Bonnechere River Watershed Project, a not-for-profit organization focusing on informing and influencing stewardship. The Riverwatch program aims to provide a baseline of information on the health of the Bonnechere River, as well as the tributaries that drain into it.
Previous years we had 10 sites along the main stem of the Bonnechere River, and we visited them 4 times last year. So we did sort of a spring, late spring, early summer, late summer, and a fall. And that sort of gave us a profile of what a year in the watershed is like in the Bonnechere River. Well, what we would see, and it's what you would expect in any standard watershed, is that in the headwaters the water is quite pristine because there's nothing going on up there. It's pretty much just forest and natural area. Then as you travel along into the different lakes, goes through many different land uses, the water does change a little bit. Generally the temperature rises a little bit, the oxygen goes down a little bit. We also find usually the acidity goes up a little bit, and that's all just because more stuff is ending up in the water. It shows us that we do have an impact on the health of the water as we work and play and live in the watershed.
Currently, there's a lack of ongoing information on the health of the Bonnechere River and its tributaries. Without monitoring, it is difficult to track changes in the health of the waterway. The Riverwatch program aims to fill this void.
So we're looking at the water chemistry. We're also looking at the benthic invertebrates, the bugs that are in the stream, the horsefly larvae, which we put back in, although maybe we shouldn't, and things like that. And there's different invertebrates that are a sign of healthy water or highly oxygenated water, things like that. And some that only exist in, or that are really common in water that's a little bit more polluted. Sampling for macroinvertebrates is standardized in the province and actually in Canada as well. There's a protocol for different kinds of benthic invertebrate sampling, so you can compare across rivers and across watersheds. And what we're trying to do is get some background information about how the watershed works, so that if someone comes in and says, I'm really concerned about how the groundwater is moving from this dump, that we can say, okay, we know that this stream doesn't have any groundwater flow in it, but this one does, for example. So with that background knowledge, the Lake Association people and the Bonnechere River Watershed Project can decide where to focus their attentions, and if there's something they're concerned about, they at least have some understanding of how the system works, so they know where to look.
As hard as the Riverwatch team works, it alone cannot shoulder the task of monitoring the health of the waterway. Volunteers are an essential part of reporting on the river's health. Folks from around the watershed that help to sample on a regular basis.
We're looking at the Vernier Lab Quest. It's our citizen science water chemistry device. The BRWP has been using it for the last 2 years to get sort of a baseline of some of the practical data on the watershed, on the creeks within the watershed, and the lakes as well, on lake tours. And today we were teaching some volunteers how to use it themselves so that they can go out and become their own individual citizen scientists.
Interest and a short learning session is all it takes for volunteers to become these citizen scientists. People of all ages and from all walks of life who are interested in conserving our environment for future generations.
Well, today we just came out and I volunteered my time. We just came out here and did some water chemistry tests. I do similar things back in Nova Scotia with my aquatics degree, And you know, it's always great to come out and lend a hand and protect our waterways. Personally, whenever you volunteer, you get to connect with nature, and when people are around to nature, they can relate to it, and then they care about it. They care about it because they want to take care of the place that they live in. So I think that's an important part of volunteering, and I think that's a big benefit you get from volunteering. I think water quality is definitely important. First of all, because we drink the water, and we use water in so many of our restaurants around the local community. And there's a lot of pollution, unknown pollution that goes on within this waterways, and if nobody's watching it or if nobody's caring about it, then no improvement can come from that.
Volunteers such as Will Miller are an important part of maintaining the health of the waterway. We are very fortunate in the Bonnechere River Watershed to still have abundant natural beauty, even as residential development becomes ever more prevalent. Encouraging people to become stewards of the environment is part of the solution to the ever-increasing strain on the ecosystems that sustain us.
Well, again, the health of Golden Lake and the community around Golden Lake is certainly the water quality. So right now the water is in very good shape, and we would certainly like to preserve it and have it carry on like that for many years to come, for the next generations. Now we're going to branch out a little more and do a little more sampling. Rather than one sampling a couple of times a year, we're going to do some on a regular basis. And we're going to change it to water chemistry. So we'll be also looking beside the phosphates, looking at the pH and the nitrates and some other things that are indicators of how healthy the lake is. Well, I think that we all need to be aware of what water does for us. We're very fortunate in Canada, obviously, to have so much fresh water. And some places, as we're well known, don't have fresh water.
It is a delicate balance in our local area between our use of the environment for its various services and the need for conservation for future generations. Without an understanding of the status of ecosystems and their wildlife populations, appropriate management decisions are more difficult to make, and unintended adverse outcomes may result that are expensive or even impossible to remedy.
And we found that the walleye population was stressed. So we thought before it got too bad, we'd try and, I guess, nip the problem in the bud and see if we could do something to enhance the fisheries. So we put a moratorium on fishing for 5 years, introduced walleye fingerling, well, baby walleye into the lake, to see if we could get the lake back replenished again. And it seems to have worked to a certain extent.
In order for measures such as this to be a thing of the past, frequent studies of all populations need to be conducted. From the deer we hunt to the birds that sing the songs we enjoy so much.
And I've been conducting a bird survey here every year for the past 25 years to identify the birds, both by sight and sound, in order to contribute data to an ongoing program in North America called the Breeding Birds Survey. For birds that are characteristic of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence region, they've basically been showing just a small increase. Grassland birds, on the other hand, have been showing extremely steep declines.
Presently in Canada, birds are not being identified as characteristic of farmland. Studies are being conducted to be able to use birds as indicators of farmland condition. Another emerging issue is climate change and its effect on wildlife populations, including both animals and the plants they depend on.
Issue that I have been conducting research on is related to the projected impacts of climate change in this part of Canada. And what we're expecting is a shift in species as they respond to a warming temperature and changes in precipitation. And we expect in this region somewhere around a 20% turnover in species over the next 30 years.
When we hear of studies of wildlife, we usually think of deer, birds, or other animals that we frequently see. A less looked at group of species is butterflies. In our local area, there is a group of naturalists that have been working to fill that void. The Lake Dory Butterfly Count has been an annual event for the past 2 decades. Initiated by Chris Michener, it compiles data on the numbers and types of the local butterflies.
So all the numbers from all the counts get compiled into a big database, and that way they're able to track different trends and slight changes in the populations.
Although volunteers are an important part of ecosystem surveys and monitoring, it is professional personnel that conduct most studies funded by private and government interests. We tagged along with a group of future forest technicians who were performing environmental readings at a local wetland.
We're out here at the Hoche wetlands doing meter by meter sample plots of the wetland with pegs and twine, and we put it out a meter by a meter. Then we take stock of what's inside that meter plot. We use our identification skills to name the native species in the plot, and then we tally it up. Some of the species we found common were common cattails, sensitive ferns, marsh timothy grass, and red canary grass, and jewelweed were all common here at the wetland. I'd say it's important to know that we're not making an impact on wetlands due to development or other human activities, and it's good to come out here and to know that our protection efforts are doing well, and we're making a difference in keeping the diversity there for the wildlife and for recreational use.
Although what species were common in the area is important, just as important is the health of the habitat that these species live in. The techs therefore also tested such things as the acidity or pH and salinity of the habitat for these species.
Myself, along with a few of the other students, were also doing chemical and biological surveys. So we took some water samples at both the eastern and the western edge of the waterfront, the main creek that runs through the farm, and to see if there's any change in pH or an oxygen level throughout the points. So.
Chemical testing was not the only thing planned for the creek. Tallies were also taken of the residents of the waterway.
We wanted to see, like the other group that was doing the 1 meter plots, we wanted to see what kind of species were around here, what floral species, what faunal species. So floral being the plants, whether it be water plants or terrestrial plants, and the faunal being the frogs, the birds, snakes, turtles, anything like that. As students, we need to be able to get out there in the world. If you were just in the classroom, you get all the theory behind it, which is also very important, but you get out into the real world, you've never been out there, you don't really have the hands-on. This course is fantastic for that. We spend quite a bit of our time actually out in the field, getting that hands-on experience, getting the chance to interact with the public, and to have that opportunity to get our hands dirty, get some experience, rather than just papers.
If we all pitch in, from the youth of today to the young at heart, all lending a hand through measuring and monitoring the condition of our local ecosystems, we should be better able to manage and conserve the nature in our neighborhood for years to come.
Watershed, it can be said, our home place. The clouds, the hills, our roof, our halls, and simple truth of watershed, here are our waterfalls.